Welcome to episode 68 of the 301 show. Got a great episode on tap for you here today. The Wild are preparing for their draft tonight. They don't have any picks in the first round, but they continue to look ahead at their offseason. The Twins got hot for a little bit, and then they have cooled off against the Dodgers. The Lynx continue to remain atop the WNBA. The Frost have finished their draft. The Vikings are looking to settle the QB1 battle in camp here. And the Timberwolves have made a couple of massive trades here at the beginning of their offseason. All of that and more here on episode 68 of the 301 show.
From the land of 10,000 lakes and just as many heartaches, welcome to the 301 show. We're here to celebrate, commiserate, and maybe, just maybe, see a Minnesota team win it all. Whether you're dreaming of a Vikings Super Bowl, reliving the glory days of the Twins, or still recovering from the Timberwolves roller coaster, we've got you covered. This is the 301 show, where the North remembers and the passion never fades.
If you do end up liking this episode, please leave a like down below. Subscribe to the channel for more content like this, as well as interviews with other Minnesota media members, athletes, and coaches. Comment down below where you agree or disagree with me. Let's get into it. Let's start here with the Nordic Report. The couple of things to go over. First, we will go over Ryan Grigson, the assistant general manager to Kwesi Adofo-Mensah, did get stripped of his assistant general manager title. He was given the opportunity to stick around with the Vikings under a different title at this point, but he chose to pursue a different opportunity and is now a senior advisor with the Cleveland Browns. So you could say that it's a one-for-one trade, Ryan Grigson versus to the Browns for Andrew Healy, and I do think the Vikings to come out on top on that one, because Ryan Grigson just seemingly wherever he goes doesn't have the greatest drafts. The drafting seems to absolutely plummet wherever he goes whenever he is there. He was with the Indianapolis Colts. The first years with them was the Andrew Luck draft 2012, and outside of Andrew Luck, in his time with the Colts, they were awful at drafting. He was also with the Browns, I believe, before that. And again, they've always been terrible at drafting as well. But yeah, so Ryan Grigson is no longer with the Minnesota Vikings. He is now with the Cleveland Browns. We'll move on. I got a couple of quotes about one about the QB1 situation, the battle, and then I've got a Ben Lieber quote about Jordan Addison. We'll actually go there real quick to the Jordan Addison quote from Ben Lieber. Excuse me. That quote from Ben Lieber was, "I think it's more realistic that he's traded than extended in the next 12 months." So he thinks that within the next, again, they picked up the 5th year option on Jordan Addison, the Vikings did. But he does not, again, next year or I think it's this year. I think he's been in the league now for 3 years. So this year he can sign an extension. The first round picks are able to sign extensions with 1 year left on their deal, with also on top of the 1 year option, or the 5th year option, excuse me. So technically 2 years left on their deal. And if we look at Jordan Addison over his 3 seasons with the Vikings. He in his 3 years, he's played 46 games. He's got 175 receptions for 2,396 yards. He's got 22 touchdowns, and his long is still 81 yards. That was this past season. Outside of the long being 81 yards, all of his career highs in terms of yards, targets, receptions, games played, touchdowns, all of those happened in his rookie year in 2023. He played 17 games, supposed to 15 and 14 the next 2 years. He had 70 receptions on 108 targets as opposed to 63 and 99 in 2024 and 42 receptions on 79 targets in 2025. Again, that's also 911 receiving yards as opposed to 875 and 610 the next 2 years, and 10 receiving touchdowns as opposed to 9 touchdowns and 3 touchdowns the next 2 years. And again, the biggest thing for me with Jordan Addison is just the fact that he can't stay on the field. And it's not a injury thing. Like it'd be a different story. Jordan Addison versus JJ McCarthy are two different stories at this point. JJ McCarthy can't stay on the field because he can't stay healthy. And to me, that's the biggest concern with JJ McCarthy. Again, he struggled last year, but I still think him not being able to stay on the field is his the biggest worry. I think Jordan Addison is the same thing, not being able to stay on the field, but again, it's for completely different reasons. It's the going missing in London and the legal issues, the driving way too fast, which we'll get an update on the Minnesota roads here with the Wolves Den. But part of me, again, also with the signing of Juwan Jennings too, like I'd almost rather have Juwan Jennings as the wide receiver too than Jordan Addison, and Jordan Addison almost becomes expendable at this point. No, I think giving Kyler Murray and JJ McCarthy this year as many weapons as possible is a good thing, but I do think that Jordan Addison's future with the Vikings, like Ben Lieber said, is very much up in question. Again, like Ben Lieber said, I think if you were to put betting odds on it, I think it is more likely that he's traded than extended. And I do think too, if you aren't going to give him that extension, I do think they should absolutely try to trade him rather than lose him for basically nothing in the offseason. I think that is obviously a way better option. You could still probably get a second or a third round pick for Jordan Addison, or a third and fifth round pick. So I do think Jordan Addison being traded is very much a possibility, and probably the leader in the clubhouse in terms of odds of what happens with Jordan Addison at this point. But we will go on to the quarterback one battle on the Purple Daily podcast with Score North. Jeremiah Sirles, former NFL offensive lineman, had a stint with the Vikings too, so former Vikings offensive lineman, was talking about the quarterback, just the battle, the fact that the battle is still going on. And his quote on that podcast was, "I don't think anyone right now is going, yeah, I hate this competition. I think people are fine with this competition, but if it goes past the night scrimmage in whatever day, that's usually like a like a week, 2 weeks into camp. If it goes past the night scrimmage without declaring a starter, I'm going to start to worry a little bit more as an offensive lineman going, how long are we going to let this go before declaring a starter? Week 1 is not that far away, and we need to have as much time on task as possible with the QB1. So again, I just think I think I agree here with Jeremiah Sirles. Obviously, he knows way more about it than I do because he actually played in the NFL. He actually played competitive football past the 4th grade. And I think the fact that he is saying that this isn't a concern right now, just the splitting reps, but it very well could be, I think is a sign that they need to make a decision pretty soon into training camp. So end of July, early August, I do think they need to make a decision. And then I think the QB2 battle, whoever, I do think that if JJ is the QB1, Kyler easily becomes the QB2. But I think if Kyler is the QB1, then JJ and Carson Wentz would battle for the QB2 spot. I do think that Kyler has the higher floor than JJ McCarthy. I think he gives you a better option if JJ McCarthy legitimately wins the QB1 spot. I do think Kyler gives you a better floor as the QB2, and then Carson Wentz would be the QB3. Now, I still think, again, if we're going betting odds favorite here, I still do think that Kyler Murray being the QB1 is the betting odds favorite at this point. I do believe that right now. I think, too, if I were to predict it right now, which I don't have a prediction today about the QB depth chart past, I do have a QB1 prediction, but past QB1, I don't have a prediction about it. But if I were to, I think I would put I would put JJ McCarthy probably as that QB3 right now, and then Max Brosmer is trying to get him to the practice squad, which I don't think they would have any trouble doing. I don't think, again, he would have to clear waivers to get to a practice squad. Any team can claim him to their active roster before he gets put officially on the practice squad. That's any player going to the practice squad. But again, just based off of last season, I don't think he would have any issues getting Max Brosmer to the practice squad. But yeah, I do think it'll be very interesting to see how long this QB battle goes into training camp. And I do think it should start, or it should end decently early on. I honestly, they had the OTAs and the mini camps going on here in the spring and early summer. Those just got wrapped up. But I do think that, I was a little bit surprised that they didn't name a starter right after those got done. I was like, I was completely understanding of the fact that that battle went through those camps and through the OTAs and minicamp, but I was surprised that it continued past that. So we'll see. Again, my leader in the clubhouse right now is Kyler being the starter, with Carson Wentz as the 2 and JJ McCarthy as the 3. We'll go on to predictions here. I had one come off the board. Again, this should have come off a while ago, but I just haven't clocked it, I guess, since in my spreadsheet of tracking. But the one that came off the board was that Brian Flores will not be the Vikings defensive coordinator in 2026. And again, I think technically things can happen. All 31 other teams do have head coaches' names named and DC's named. I don't think he would go anywhere else. But again, we will revisit this if for somehow something happens, or if he's just not even in the league after, come week one. We'll revisit this, but he is the Vikings DC right now, so this I'll take it off the board for now is incorrect. This brings it up to 53 out of 153 for 35%. We've got the three coming on the board here. We'll start with that QB battle prediction. I said Kyler Murray will be the week one starter. Again, don't know how many games he will start the entire season, but he will be the week one starter. Jordan Addison will have the third most receiving yards on the Vikings in 2026. And I do think Justin Jefferson will be that leader, and then either Juwan Jennings or coming in here and having a good year as the second most, or having a bounce back year from TJ Hawkinson being that second most. But I do think Jordan Addison will be specifically the third highest receiving target, I guess, on the 2026 Vikings. And then in week one of 2026 with Kyler Murray as the star, again, that part doesn't count towards this prediction, whoever is the quarterback. But for both of these to come true, with Kyler as the starter, Justin Jefferson will have at least 100 receiving yards in week one of this year. Moving on to the Rinkside Rundown now. We will start with the Frost as they just finished up their draft. They also made a couple of re-signings, so we'll go over those first. Claire Boutrec came back on a 1-year standard player agreement. She played in 30 games last year with 0 goals, 3 assists for 3 points. She was a -4 and had 6 penalty minutes. So the Frost bringing back some of their depth. They also re-signed Clara Himilovra. Again, another 1-year standard player agreement. 29 games played. She had 3 goals, 5 assists for 8 points. She was also -5 with 6 penalty minutes. But in the draft, they drafted kind of all over the place. Well-rounded draft here. Again, they had 6 picks in the draft. With pick number 9 in the first round, they drafted Sarah Swiderski, a defender from Ohio State. She's from British Columbia, too. The Ohio State University. Then with pick 21, they drafted Vivi Venika, a forward from Finland. Pick 33, Maddie Christian was selected. She is from Penn State. She's a forward. She is also an Elk River native, so she's coming back to the state of hockey. Pick 45 in the 4th round was Tova Henderson, the defender from UMD, also was born and raised in Richmond, British Columbia. The pick 57 was Daria Gerdzen. She's a goalie from Russia. I'm not going to attempt to pronounce what Russian town and where she played, because I will absolutely butcher that, as if I haven't butchered half of these names already. And then with pick number 69, their 6th round pick, they took Laura Beecher, the forward from Clarkson University and a Buffalo, New York native. So again, just they lost some defenders this year in the expansion draft. So they went defender early, followed with a couple of goaltender, or not goaltender, a couple of forwards, and then a defender, and then a goalie, and then rounded it out with another forward. Again, this year is just weird with just how many teams there are too in the league now. There's 12 teams in the PWHL, so the talent is going to be a little bit more split up across the league. Just having more teams also gives more players an opportunity to be able to play in a professional women's hockey league. But we'll move on to the Wild here. They have the draft coming up. There's been a ton of movement in just across the NHL. A couple of the players that the Wild are in talks about trading for / signing this offseason are now unavailable because they were either traded or they were signed and traded to other teams. So Alex Tuch got traded from he was signed an 8-year extension and then got traded in a sign and trade. Brady Tkachuk last weekend on Father's Day actually got traded to the Florida Panthers, which again, that has to be one of the best couple of days for the Tkachuk family, because Brady got traded on Sunday to the Florida Panthers to go play with his brother Matthew, and then their dad a couple of days later, Keith Tkachuk, got inducted into the Hockey Hall of Fame. So absolutely great couple of days for the Tkachuk family. Those are the two big ones. I had heard some rumors too that the Wild were interested at least discussing Zach Werenski. Again, that was a very much a long shot. He also got traded to the Buffalo Sabres with Connor Garland. Tonight is the first round of the draft as I am posting this on Friday the 26th. I had to just double check the date there. The Wild do not have a pick in this year's first round. That first round pick is Vancouver's. Again, I'm absolutely still doing that trade with Vancouver to get back Quinn Hughes. Where they were picking, I don't think that they were going to get anyone close to as good as a Quinn Hughes. But they don't have a second round pick this year. That one was sent to Nashville for Michael McCarron. Again, I still do like that trade, especially since he re-signed a few weeks ago. What was it, a 5-year deal, I think? 6-year deal, 6-year deal a couple weeks ago. So they don't have a first or a second round pick. Again, just the first round tonight will be the second round through the 7th round tomorrow morning. So the Wild do have their third round pick, a 4th round pick. Third round picks, 89th overall. 4th is 121st overall. Then they have 2 5th round picks at 137 and 153. And they have a 6th round pick at 185. So those are the draft picks that they have, which, speaking of first round picks being traded for Quinn Hughes, Craig Leopold had a quote on Minnesota Public Radio talking about Quinn Hughes. Again, Craig Leopold, the owner of the Minnesota Wild. And I've got certainly the first thought that came into my mind when I heard this quote. I will let you guys know after. I had a strong reaction to this when I heard it. So the quote is, first of all, Quinn Hughes is an extraordinary player and an extraordinary person. We had to give up a lot to get him in this past year. We are going to re-sign him. The question will be for how long. We would like to go as long as we can. He'll probably want it to be a little shorter. Shorter being maybe 3 years. Hopefully we can end up at 5. I don't know. And the reason I can talk openly about this is that I am not doing the negotiating. First of all, Craig, if you're listening, you're probably not listening to this because this is a very small show and I don't know how much of media that you even pay attention to in the first place. But you last year talking about Kirill made him ask for even more. You could have gotten him for $1 million cheaper for the same amount of years, and $1 million cheaper per year for the same amount of years. And I just feel like this quote, no matter, even if you're not the one doing the negotiating, this quote is still hurting the team and hurting Bill Guerin's ability to negotiate with Quinn, and it's giving Quinn Hughes more power. And again, I said last week he was probably going to ask for somewhere between that 13 and 17 million dollars. So he was already going to ask for a lot of money anyways. But now he's probably going to end up on the higher end of that range and not willing to go any lower, just because you're talking about that of we're going to re-sign him, and now he can be like, well, you said you were going to re-sign me, so this is the number I'm going to re-sign for. There was a story last year on at least I heard it from Judd Zulgad on Judd's hockey show, that he was talking about the Craig Leopold hosts some media members in a suite to just ask questions to Craig, and Bill Guerin was and Judd Zulgad was part of this, and this was before the Kirill contract extension was done, and Craig was like, you can ask any questions, and Bill Guerin was basically just standing over his shoulder, making sure he didn't say anything about Kirill Kaprizov and that, because of how it might impact the contract negotiations. And then the report came out that he turned down the $16 million per year for 8 years contract and ended up signing for $1 million more than that. And I just think that anything anything that is said from a higher up in the organization, that like could possibly hurt the negotiations and could make the negotiations go, end up with more power for Quinn Hughes. Now, again, Quinn Hughes deserves as much money as he can get. Like go out and get as much money as you can. But at the same time, in a salary cap league, the team is trying to save money too, and we're trying to, Minnesota wants to, like, the state of Minnesota, the fans want a Stanley Cup, and they want a men's championship for the first time since the 90s, and having Quinn Hughes on the team absolutely puts you closer to winning the Stanley Cup. But you still have to have good depth around him, and you have to have depth around your two superstars and your third, borderline superstar in Matt Boldy. Like you still need the Michael McCarrons, and you still need these depth pieces that are going to help contribute in April, especially if Kirill is not contributing in April as much as he should be. I just think that being able to bring Quinn Hughes back on a deal that is cheaper for what Quinn Hughes is asking, what Quinn Hughes, could be getting, will always be a good thing. So if they can get him back on a cheaper deal, then this whole rant doesn't matter. Like, this whole rant ended up not ended up meeting. This quote doesn't end up affecting the actual negotiations. If he'll sign for like $13 million, then it doesn't matter. But I still think that at the end of the day, he's going to ask for more money because of this quote. And I don't think he'll come out and say, I don't think we'll actually get it confirmed either way, but I do think that it will play a part in it at some point. So the final thing here is a report just based off of a tweet from Andy Strickland, who is a St. Louis Blues host and reporter. He works with the FanDuel Sports Network with the St. Louis Blues. And he tweeted just a few hours ago, his tweet said, "Gauging opinions, the belief is that Dylan Larkin will end up with Minnesota once everything is settled." So again, this kind of last week has been absolutely insane for the NHL, just movement wise. And I do not think that the Dylan Larkin trade is going to for sure happen today or tonight or at the draft. When he says once everything is settled, that could be the first game of the season. That could be halfway through the season. It's just once the whole Dylan Larkin situation is settled, maybe not the league calms down a little bit. So that is always a good news there, I believe. And I think that they can, it will end up maybe costing a little bit more than what Wild fans want in terms of the trade package. I think it probably is Stramel, year off, and then a salary player, a player with a little bit more salary, and a first-round pick. Or just year off or Stramel, a player with salary, and a first-round pick is probably what it ends up being for what it'll be to take to trade for Dylan Larkin. So yeah, very well could see a new top line center for the Wild here very soon. We'll move on to predictions. I did not have any come off the board this week. That leaves the Rinkside Rundown at 68 total correct out of 174 total predicted for 39% correct. We'll go over the three predictions coming on the board here. Said the Wild will draft a goaltender in the 5th round. So one of their 2 5th-round picks will be a goaltender. Absolutely taking a shot in the dark there. This will be an absolute snipe if it ends up happening. I said second prediction here is Sarah Swiderski will score 3 or more goals next season, so the 26-27 season. Again, she's a defender. So this will be, I think, quite a lot for a rookie defender in the PWHL. And then final prediction of the 3 is that John Hines will win the Jack Adams Award as the head coach of the Minnesota Wild. So at some point before he leaves the Wild, he will win the Jack Adams Award. All right, moving on to Target Field Talkers now. Got a few things to go over this week. The Twins are now 38-44. They are still 3rd place in the AL Central. They are tied for 7th in the AL Wild Card. They are hitting 245 on the year. They have 395 runs scored. The team has a 4.82 ERA, which I believe is 29th in the league, 28th in the league maybe. But it is, regardless, it is awful. The whip is 1.40. They have 47 errors on an 983 fielding percentage. The Twins took on the Arizona Diamondbacks this last weekend. They won 2 out of 3, including a game where they won 16-7. Again, the pitching staff did them no favor. The bullpen, I should say, did them no favors. Again, yeah, that ERA 4.82 is 28th, only ahead of the Athletics and the Colorado Rockies. But again, the game that it was 16-2, and then the bullpen gave up 5 in 1 inning to make it 16-7 and give the Diamondbacks even the smallest glimmers of hope. They then came home to take on the Los Angeles Dodgers, and I know the Dodgers are the back-to-back World Series champions. but the Dodgers swept the Twins to get rid of really any type of hope that the Twins had to actually compete this season, if there was any actually left. The Rockies are in town this weekend for a 3-game series from the 26th to the 28th. And then they travel to Houston on Monday, or for a game on Monday, to start a 3-game series against the Astros from the 29th to July 1st. We've got 3 things to discuss here for Target Field Talkers. First, some bad news. Mick Abel, it was announced that he got an MRI and now has swelling in his elbow joint, but no ligament damage. And so Mick Abel, again, is just started off so promising, especially in spring training. Could have been like maybe a solid number 3 starter with Pablo being out. Could have been a pretty good 4th or 5th starter this year, but has just been decimated by injury. So even when the Twins think that they have something going, well, the injury bug says, no, we're not doing that. So the Mick Abel will return to will stay on the IR for even longer now. Again, 2 more things here. We'll go back to that series against the Dodgers. Joe Ryan was scratched from his scheduled start in the second game of the series. He was sick on Tuesday, but he ended up feeling better towards the end of Tuesday and started against the Dodgers on Wednesday, and Shohei Ohtani. Announced attendance. I was in attendance for this game. The announced attendance was 39,853 fans. But I will say it was probably wasn't exactly that amount, but it was pretty close to that number. I'd say there's probably 35,000 plus fans in attendance for that game. It was packed. And rightfully so. Again, I thought both starting pitchers pitched very, very well in that game. Again, they maybe made 1 or 2 bad pitches that cost them. Again, the score was 4-3 was the final score. But just the fact that it was close, and that type of game with the crowd and just how good all around I thought the game was. The game itself, not just the crowd, honestly pisses me off. It makes me mad because if the owners cared here and didn't want to just right size the business as they have said, then we could be getting like it was really like the last time we got games like that on a consistent basis, I think was back in like in a consistent basis, meaning the entire season, was probably 2010. Probably the first season at Target Field, because they were coming off an insane game 163 against the Tigers in the last year of the Dome. They had the new stadium. They were, probably the front runners for the AL Central, and people were excited about it. And you got close to this in 2019 with the Bomba Squad, and again in the playoffs in 2023 and the beginning of the 2024 season, but there wasn't really anything close to this in those seasons, and it's proof that this fan base wants great matchups like this. It's proof that this fan base still does. And again, there were a lot of Dodgers fans in attendance for this game, obviously, but it's still proof that like there were a ton of Twins fans there making noise, cheering. And I just think that they like fans feel cheated because of these owners. And again, that's a very obvious thing to say, I think. And I just think that again, the Ohtani versus Ryan is proof that this is still a baseball town. It's still proof that people care about the sport of baseball and care about the Twins too. I think the best way to put it is people care about the team, not the owners. I think if you had any of the other three ownership groups of the four major teams here in Minnesota, then this team would look drastically different right now, and interest will look drastically different in this team. And you would, even if they were still struggling, if they didn't have the fire sale last year, but were still struggling to be a 500 team this year, people would care way more about this team right now. And maybe not as much as they did in that game on Wednesday. I don't think there would be that much attendance, but I still think that they would absolutely find things to cheer about and fill. The stadium would be at least more full than it is on an average basis this season. Which, speaking of the ownership group, the trade deadline has proven to be provide some directional differences here between Tom Pohlad, the chairman, and the rest of the front office. Tom Pohlad wants to add at the deadline because of the American League weakness, which, again, if we look at the standings, the American League is just super weak compared to the National League. There are, I believe it's, 4 teams above 500, and then the Mariners are at 500. So there's 5 of the 15 teams at or above 500. 10 teams in the American League are below 500. So 2/3 of the league of the American League are below 500. And then the National League, if you look at it, the Nationals are 41-41. Again, same exact record as the Seattle Mariners. They wouldn't make the playoffs right now. There are, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. There are more teams at or above 500 than there are, or there's twice as many teams at or above 500 than there are in the American League. It's only the Reds, Mets, Giants, and Rockies. Again, the Rockies are awful. But those are the only 4 teams that are below 500 in the National League. So, again, I understand where Tom Pohlad's coming from there, because they are within like striking distance of a wild card spot. But at the same time, what is that really like getting you? And what is that, a first round exit? Because I don't think they're winning. But right now there's 4 teams tied for the final wild card spot right now, and the Twins are a game and a half back from being in a tie for that last spot. If you look at it here too, what's even more embarrassing is there's 3 teams right now in the American League that are a plus run differential. It's the New York Yankees at plus 110 runs. Second place team is the Tampa Bay Rays, who are a plus 13. And the Seattle Mariners are a plus 4. The National League, if you look at the National League, there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 teams that are a plus. They have almost as many teams that are plus triple digits as the American League has just plus run differential. So again, completely understand that, yes, this American League is wide open. The rest of the front office would like to sell by trading Ryan Jeffers and Joe Ryan and I guess Byron Buxton too, if he's willing to be traded. But I just think that that this team, again, like I said last week, the absolute worst thing that they can do is stay put. I think you have to decide whether you want to go in on this year and add, and whether you want to or you want to sell. And the reason I don't trust Tom Pohlad that he wants to add is because of the payroll and because of and I know it was Joe Pohlad was the one that was running the team the last few years, but it's still the same ownership group. And I refuse to believe that just because he wasn't the one, the sole person in charge, that he had zero clue as to what was going on with the team and had zero input. So until he actually greenlights going out and adding, or the Twins actually add something of value, specifically probably in that bullpen, I'm not going to believe that he actually wants to be a contender. And even if he does add something, it's got to be adding a significant amount of payroll, like adding $1 million to the payroll. Again, $1 million sounds great to me and you, but to a team worth billions of dollars and owners worth billions of dollars, that's not, to me, that's not really doing anything to get my trust back in this ownership group. And I also want to see like long-term deals, because again, I don't trust that you're not going to just go back this offseason. Even if you do add at the deadline, I'm not going to be able to trust that you're that you're not going to just get rid of that payroll this offseason. So basically, I'm just saying that I don't trust this front office, or not the front office. I trust the front office way more than I trust the ownership group, because I feel like a lot of this selling has been due to the ownership telling them to not do anything and to get rid of payroll. We'll move on to predictions here. I had 3 come off the board. I said Matt Wallner will play 120 plus MLB games, even if he gets called up for tonight's game and plays every game the rest of the way out. That will not be enough for 120 MLB games this season. I also said that Edward Julian will play more games in 2026 than he did in 2025. That officially was true as of a couple days ago. And then the Twins will get swept by the Dodgers, which they did. That makes it 45 out of 143 for 31% correct. I've got 3 coming on the board here. I said the Twins will win at least 2 out of 3 against the Rockies. Byron Buxton, who's sitting at 25 home runs so far this year, will hit 40 plus home runs, and the AL will win the 2026 All-Star game. Moving on now to the final team segment here of today's episode, the Wolves Den. We will start with the Minnesota Lynx, who continue to be red hot in the WNBA. They have a record of 14-4 on the season. They are first in the WNBA. They're 6-3 at home, 8-1 on the road. They are second in points for with 90.8, second in points against with 79.4. That's good for number 1 in point differential with plus 11.4. No other team is even close. I believe it's like a 3 something. I'll pull it up here in just a second. Excuse me. No, it's not 3. It's 6.1 is the Atlanta Dream in second place for the point differential. The Lynx went 2-1 in the last week. They beat the Golden State Valkyrie at Golden State. They lost to the Washington Mystics at home, 84-79. And then they beat the Washington Mystics in Washington 78-76. They will play the Dallas Wings on Sunday, the 28th at 1 p.m. And then their next game, they got a little bit of a break. Their next game is Friday, July 3rd at 6:30 in New York against the Liberty. That is really, again, Olivia Miles had her first bad game. But again, I think it's a good thing because it will, she still, I think, needs to learn how to overcome that here and be able to overcome some adversity. And I believe that was the game in Washington where they won by 2 points. So again, it's good that she can see too, like it's not all on her. Again, they are 14-4 without Nafisa Collier, who is a top 3 to 5 best player in the league right now. So again, I do think Olivia Miles will continue to grow here as a player and only get better, which is also insane to me to say because of how good she already is. Move on to the Timberwolves, who had quite possibly the biggest week of the entire franchise's history. They will start with the first trade that they made, which they made a trade with Brooklyn. The Nets received Julius Randle and pick number 28 in this year's draft. The Bulls received Nic Claxton, and Minnesota received pick number 33 in the 2026 draft and Mo Gaye. So that was the first trade they made. The second trade they made was with Charlotte in an absolute bombshell here, I guess. It's just an absolute blockbuster. Charlotte received a 2033 first round unprotected pick, 3 second round picks in 2029, 2032, and 2033, and then 3 first round pick swaps in 2028, 2029, and 2030. I did see something on Twitter about these picks. I will have to pull it up here just a second. So the pick swaps, 2029, the pick swap in 2029 is only swappable if Minnesota's pick is 1 through 5, because if it is 6 through 30, that part goes to Utah. So that was part of the the Rudy trade in 2029. Was top 5 protected. So if it's 6 through 30, then it goes to Utah. If it is 1 through 5, it'll go to Charlotte. In 2030, they have already made a trade from trading up to get back into the first round last year with San Antonio. And that was a pick swap in 2030. So whichever one of Minnesota and San Antonio's picks is less favorable in 2030, that pick swap will then be a pick swap in, and again, both of those are whichever pick is less favorable. So if in 2029, Minnesota's pick is number 2, but Charlotte's is number 1, Charlotte keeps their pick, Minnesota keeps their pick. In 2030, it's if San Antonio if Timberwolves have pick 10, San Antonio's pick 20, the Wolves get pick 20, and then from that trade, and then if Charlotte has pick 5 and the Wolves have pick 20, they'll keep pick 20, and the Hornets will keep pick 5. So a lot of swapping going on there. It seems very very confusing, because it is very confusing. Those 3 pick swaps are going to Charlotte. Charlotte will also receive 1 Naz Reid, while Minnesota receives LaMelo Ball and Josh Green. Again, as much of a fan favorite as Naz Reid is, I completely understand this trade. But what I don't understand is who our four is going to be this year. It's probably going to, unless we make another move, it's probably going to end up being Jaden McDaniels. Could eventually long-term be Johan Berenger, but I don't believe that that's where they're at right now for this upcoming season. I do think LaMelo is fantastic for this, the fantastic fit for this team, because he is a point guard that probably the best point guard Ant's ever played with in the NBA. And so he will be just a great facilitator of the offense here with Ant. The Wolves, part of the trade with the Brooklyn trade, going back to that first one, trading Julius was so they could have some cap space, just to get the Julius off the books there, and they so they could re-sign one Ayo Dosunmu, who is the reporting is, again, the new league year doesn't start until the 6th, so this can't happen until then. But Ayo Dosunmu intends to sign a 5-year, $112 million deal with the Minnesota Timberwolves. So that trade at the deadline last year will be sticking around. The Wolves also had 2 picks in this year's draft. Again, the pick number 33 that they got in the Julius Randle trade, where they took Isaiah Evans, who's a 6'6" guard from Duke. Don't know how he fell to the second round. He was fantastic in college at Duke. And at Duke, he averaged 7 threes per game last year. And he is, again, just I think a fantastic player. That was probably the steal of the draft, and then being able to pick up LaMelo Ball too. Again, I don't think Isaiah Evans is going to be a starter right away. He might be asked to play a ton off the bench, just with some of these depth pieces now being starters, and now obviously Naz Reid moving on. But again, I think this is a great pick for the Timberwolves right now. They also had pick number 59, where they took Trey Kaufman-Renn, who's a 6'9" forward from Purdue. So again, just adding some more size depth there. But I do think LaMelo adds a ton to this team. Again, it's going to be a lot. I think it's going to be really fun watching this team this upcoming year. We'll see if this actually is the move that can put them over that edge. I don't know 100%, just because of how good their teams were before, if that makes them better than OKC or San Antonio, just because San Antonio and OKC are so incredibly good. But I do think that puts them closer as of right now. And I think for LaMelo's part, I think it's he finally gets to play meaningful basketball in April. I think too, it's a just the value. I think if it's a big if he can stay healthy and hit the peak of his ability here, this is going to be the fleece of the century, because it's pick swaps. We only actually lost 1 first-round pick, and then you can acquire second-round picks super, super easily in the NBA. So that is not really that worrisome here. So I think, again, love Naz Reid. Naz Reid is probably the hardest part to give up for this. But I think that he, I think just with the opportunity to possibly get starting time in Charlotte, I think he's going to thrive there too. Again, might not help the team just because it's Charlotte and it's the Cleveland Browns of the NBA basically. But I think he obviously going to be very missed here in Minnesota, but I do think this makes the team better. Let's move on to predictions here. Had two come off the board. I said the Lynx will beat Washington at home. They did not. They beat them on the road. And then the Lynx will beat Golden State, which they did. That brings it up to 57 out of 181 for 31%. Okay, I got three coming on the board. I think Naz Reid, again, just will play very, very well. He'll get MVP votes in 2026-27. I think Ant will finish top 3 in points per game in 26-27, even though they found a secondary scorer. I think the playmaking of LaMelo is also very, very good. So I think he'll help out there. And then Chris Finch will either win Coach of the Year or be fired in 2026-27. So I think this is either going to do really, really well or it's going to backfire spectacularly. So he'll either win Coach of the Year or be fired in 26-27. Now moving on to the final team segment of today's episode, the Power Rankings segment, where we take a topic in Minnesota sports and rank it from 1 to 10. We do this at the end of every single episode of the 301 show. In list past, we've done the top 10 heartbreaking losses, the top 10 Minnesota athletes, the top 10 what ifs in Minnesota sports. This week, we are going to do a list of the best Minnesota athletes to win a championship elsewhere. They could not have won in Minnesota. They had to have won, they had to have won somewhere else. And this is the rankings. The way I did this was based on how much it hurt as well too. So that is taken into account. Let's get right into it here. Number 10 is Andrew Wiggins. Again, listed this. And this is also, they had to have won the championship after leaving Minnesota. So they could not have won a championship, then come to Minnesota and then left to go somewhere else. It was only for those who won it after. So number 10 is Andrew Wiggins, won it with the Golden State Warriors in 2022. Again, at number 10, because he wasn't the piece or close to one of the top pieces in that championship. But number 9 is Eddie Rosario. Again, he won, I think it was ALDS or NLDS MVP with the Atlanta Braves, or NLCS MVP with the Atlanta Braves, or it was World Series MVP. I can't remember exactly now, but he won MVP of one of the rounds with the Braves en route to the 2022 World Series title. Number 8, won it with the LA Kings, Marion Gaborik. Again, the first ever draft pick of the Minnesota Wild. Ended up winning it with the Kings years later. Number 7, I feel like he was a bigger part of this Timberwolves team. Ended up winning it with LeBron. Number 7 is Kevin Love. Number 6 here is Neil Broughton. Ended up winning it, I believe, with the Devils, if I remember correctly. He comes in at number 6 here. We'll move on to the top 5. At number 5 here is Sam Darnold. Again, played here only 1 year, and ended up winning the Super Bowl the year after he left. Number 4, again, kind of the inspiration for this list with Sam Darnold here. Number 4, some people might say it's low, but I've got reasons for the top 3. Number 4 is Karl Anthony Towns. Again, just won it with the New York Knicks. Please don't take the recency bias into account here. Again, that's a big part of why I think people are going to want this higher on this list. But Karl Anthony Towns comes in at number 4. At number 3 is Mike Modano. He obviously was a Minnesota North Star, and the reason he won a championship and the reason it hurts more than Karl Anthony Towns is he won it with the Dallas Stars. So the entire team moved. So I think that is part of the reason why I have Mike Modano ahead of Karl Anthony Towns on this list. Number 2, I do feel like he was a bigger part of the Timberwolves. And he was a better player. Number 2 is Kevin Garnett. So number 2 on this list, again, won it in, 2007 with the Boston Celtics. He didn't want to leave either. He was actually asking to stay, but before he got traded to the Celtics. And number 1, again, he won multiple championships. I feel like, especially that 2006 Minnesota Twins team absolutely could have been World Series contenders that year. Number 1, David Ortiz. Again, won multiple championships, won World Series MVPs, and just that fact, I think, makes it him number 1 on this list. That'll do it for episode 68 of the 301 show. I do want to thank you for taking the time to watch this one, and if you're still watching this entire video as well. If you did like this video, please leave a like down below. Subscribe to the channel for more content like this, as well as interviews with athletes, coaches, and other media members. You can comment down below any ideas that you have for the power rankings, as well as where you agree or disagree with me. We'll see you next time here. For everyone here at the 301 show, I am Charlie Wayman. We'll see you next time. Peace.